A man found out Nature Boy was leaving America. He wanted to go with him and he gave him $20,000. And then he gave him more and more until the total came up to over $300,000.
What?
His inheritance gone. And I need you to understand that he was not the only one. 3 men showed up initially when Nature Boy announced that he was leaving America, and he invited people on social media who wanted to go with him. Before any women showed up, 3 men decided that whatever Nature Boy was building, they wanted in so bad, they ended up funding it. This episode is about the men, and June just happens to be Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. So the timing of this is definitely not just a coincidence. What wound brings a man to his knees in front of another man? Let's talk about it. And let me be honest, the reason why this episode is late is because this thing is taking a toll on me mentally, emotionally. It is a lot. It is heavy. It is draining. The Hulu documentary is one thing, but of course, we know everything isn't in that documentary. And I found a YouTube channel that has over 40 episodes from beginning to end. I'm not done watching everything, but there's just so much more information, and it was taking a toll on me before I found this channel. So if my energy seems a little bit off, that is why. Let's get into episode 4.
Tired of just surviving, ready to heal. Gotta take some action, do more than kneel. I kept blaming heaven.
So, of course, just like I've said in other episodes, this is not about shaming the men of Carbon Nation, even though there's so much that went on that I'm not even going to have time to mention. If you watched episode 3, you heard me say that the fact that Velvet stayed doesn't make her weak. The same grace is extended to the men. Velvet actually left and came back multiple times, and so did some men, but same grace. So what we're doing in this episode is the same thing we've been doing in other episodes, just trying to understand, right? We know that understanding is the only thing that protects us going forward. Judgment feels satisfying for maybe about 30 seconds, and then after that, you feel just as vulnerable as you were before. All right, so I understand that my audience is primarily women, but this episode is about the men. So I want you to share it with a man that is in your life. Your brothers, your sons, if they are of age, your friends, your husband, your side piece, all the men, even the men in your church. The men who would never search anything about a healing coach may just watch this video. We all know that what happened in Carbon Nation is not just a Carbon Nation problem. It is a wound that is walking around in plain clothes in every community, in every church, and in every household, and nobody's giving it a name. June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, and we're going to use it. So here's something that most people who are watching the Hulu documentary may not know, and I'm going to use my notes heavily because this is heavy and I don't feel like thinking. Period. So when Nature Boy first announced that he was leaving America, he put it on social media, talking about how he was leaving the system, how he's leaving Babylon. Baby, I don't even want to hear the word Babylon. I can never hear that word again. It'll be too soon. And I'm currently reading a book called The Richest Man in Babylon that I just started. Go figure. But he put the invitation out on social media, and 3 men showed up. Not women, men. So 3 men were the first ones. They decided that whatever this was, the vision, the brotherhood, the enlightenment, they wanted to be a part of it. They desired something new, a way out. And one of these men, if I'm not mistaken, they called him Key. Not only did he show up, but he brought $20,000 with him to support the movement. And he even said, even after everything went down, he said he doesn't feel bad about giving the money. He felt like his heart was in the right place. So he handed the 20K over, and baby, that was just the beginning. By the time it was all said and done, Key had given Nature Boy over $300,000 of his inheritance. $300,000. Nature Boy kept coming back asking for more. I could stop right there and just let y'all go off in the comments clowning him, but that's not why we're here. And my question isn't even how could he be so stupid? My question is, what was Key so hungry for that $300,000 seemed like a reasonable price to pay? What was the thing that Nature Boy was selling that was worth that much to a man who had it to give? I believe the answer was the same thing that brought all three of these men to the door before the women even showed up. Belonging, brotherhood, the chance to be a part of building something that mattered, the chance to be needed by something bigger than themselves. I want you to hold that image. Three men showing up first, funding the vision, because this is going to change how we tell the story about Carbon Nation. This was not a man who preyed exclusively on vulnerable women. He started with men. He built his foundation on men, and then he used those men to build everything else. Let's talk about Aaron, who goes by the name True in the documentary. His story, it just got me. When I heard that he was military, I was like, how could he even get a man from the military? And there's a detail about Aaron I didn't know when I first began to cover this series. Aaron, again, had a military background. When he joined Carbon Nation, he brought something with him from military training that he thought was a gift. He introduced the rule that when Nature Boy enters the room, everyone should be standing at attention with their hands behind their backs. Aaron brought that from the military because he wanted to create structure, order, a chain of command that meant something. He thought he was contributing something valuable to the group. Just sit with the devastation of that for a moment. His discipline, his understanding of structure, his military trained instinct for order became one of the primary tools of control inside Carbon Nation. Nature Boy didn't invent the stand at attention rule. A wounded man who wanted brotherhood invented it. Nature Boy just stepped into the center of it. That's not Aaron's fault, but it is one of the most important things I'll say in this series. When your gifts have not been submitted to safe authority, when your strength, your instinct, your capacity for loyalty and structure and discipline exist inside of a wound that has never been addressed, those gifts don't protect you. They become the architecture of your own prison. Aaron built the cage with skills he developed to be free. Aaron said he watched video after video of Carbon Nation before he joined. What pulled him in was not the lifestyle or tropical locations. It was the idea of brotherhood, a structure, a chain of command that meant something. He was already wired for loyalty, already trained to follow a chain of command, already conditioned to find meaning in something bigger than himself. Nature Boy didn't create those qualities in Aaron. He just put himself at the top of the structure Aaron already knew how to serve. And Aaron says something that I need you all to hear because it's one of the most self-aware things said by anyone in the documentary. He said his military background was actually a part of what made him so vulnerable. He already had this need for brotherhood and submission to structure. His greatest strength became the door. And baby, that's the thing about unhealed wounds. They do not announce themselves. They dress up as your best qualities, your loyalty, your discipline, your hunger for something real, and they walk you right up into a room that you should have never entered. Now, I want to lay out some of what Nature Boy did to the men in Carbon Nation. It was systematic, very deliberate, and it went far beyond what most people are talking about. First, he used women as currency between the men. Would pair men up with women, give them what felt like a relationship, a wife, partner, something that resembled belonging and intimacy. And then whenever he wanted, he would take the women back. Yeah, make her his and then redistribute her to someone else. Sometimes he would give the women to different men. Sometimes he would give them back to the same man he took them from. I need you to picture what that does to a man psychologically. You have something and someone, it feels real, like it's yours. And then without warning, the leader takes it, not by force, not through argument, just by declaration. Because he is the chief and he said so. And you have two choices in that moment. You can resist and lose everything, your status, your place in the group, possibly your safety, or you can accept it. Tell yourself, this is just, this is what submission to the vision looks like. Most of them accepted it. I believe so far, I only found one man that stood up like, yeah, I don't want you to take my wife. And let me show you what this looked like in real time. Because some of this didn't happen in secret. It happened on live stream. I saw a clip where Nature Boy was on a big old live. Carbon Nation members were in the boxes. People were watching, present, and he calls out Sheba. At the time, that was True Aaron's wife. The woman this man had built a life with inside the group. They had a child together. In front of everybody, Nature Boy asked her, "Are you happy with True right now? Do you respect him as a man? Or do you compare him to me? Do you just compare him to Chief? Why don't you respect him as a man? If you didn't have a baby with him, would you even want to be with him?" On a live stream with people watching, with True right beside her in this frame, knowing full well what was happening. And then within a day or two, he took Sheba from True and made her his wife again, just like that, by declaration, because he's the chief and this is what chiefs do. Who gonna check him? I want you to understand what that live stream was. It wasn't just a conversation. It wasn't him checking in on the health of their relationship. It was a public dismantling, a humiliation ritual, if you will, carefully constructed. Every question designed to do one thing: put doubt in Sheba's mind about True, while True and everyone else watched in real time. He wasn't asking Sheba how she felt, he was telling her how she was supposed to feel. And by doing it on live, making it public, while True and other members of Carbon Nation watched. He was sending a message that had nothing to do with Sheba at all. The message was to every man in the group: your wife, your relationship, your dignity, all of it belongs to me. And I can take it whenever I want, even on camera, in front of everybody. And there's nothing you can do about it. This wasn't the first time, and it wouldn't be the last. He would take the women from the men, sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks, sleep with them, and then give them back, redistribute them to different men if he felt like it, rearrange the pairings whenever the mood struck him. The man was supposed to accept it as the natural order of things. What that does to a man's sense of self over time is something that I honestly believe we don't have the language for. It's not just a heartbreak, it's a systematic erasure of his identity as a partner, as a protector, as someone whose choices and bonds mean nothing at all. Imagine being this man who's supposed to be the protector of your wife, your girlfriend, whatever, and you can't even protect her from the chief. You cannot hold on to anything in that environment, not a relationship, not a role, not even your dignity, because all of it could be taken publicly, casually, with a smile, by one man who decided that he was God. And yet, they stayed. By that point, the brotherhood, the identity, the structure, the fear of what leaving meant, all of it became more load bearing than their own self respect. This is what systematic psychological dismantling looks like when it has been running long enough. Velvet's original partner, the man she was actually happy with before Nature Boy intervened, he eventually left the group entirely. He said he couldn't mentally handle what was being done, watching the woman he loved be taken, controlled, abused. He couldn't just stand there and call it discipline. He left, and that took something. Leaving Carbonation wasn't easy. Leaving meant losing everything he had invested: the brotherhood, the structure, the identity he built inside of Carbonation. And he still left because there's a limit to what even a conditioned nervous system is able to absorb. And here's the part that I think may be the hardest to talk about. And I'm going to say it plainly with my chest because it needs to be said plainly. Nature Boy didn't make these men victims, he turned them into enforcers. The men were ordered to carry out violence on the women, on each other. They were made to watch sexual acts. They were coerced into participating into Nature Boy's ideology in ways that made them complicit. He also had 4 of the men participate in an orgy with him and a tranny. I feel like that was another form of control. Yeah, now let me humiliate you. You really can't leave after this. You see what I'm saying? Not just witnesses, but active participants in the abuse. A former member testified about how the members of Carbon Nation, including the men, were encouraged to make videos basically talking about the people who left Carbon Nation, trying to taint their reputations pretty much, make them look bad. Post things online, make them look crazy, and make sure they have nowhere safe to go. That's not just victimization, that's conversion. Nature Boy took wounded men and converted them into weapons. And once you have a weapon, once your hand has done things that you can't take back, the shame of that becomes its own chain. Because now you can't leave without confronting what you participated in. That confrontation feels more dangerous than staying. There's also this. They were passing around STDs in the group. I'm going to say allegedly. Nature Boy controlled all sexual relationships and pairings. He positioned himself as authority concerning who was with who and what and when and all that stuff. The physical consequences of his control spread throughout the group, allegedly. Men and women both. Their bodies were not their own. And that damage wasn't just psychological. And then there was the psychological warfare. He would go off on the men for things that seemed like concern on the surface. There is footage of him losing it on like two men that were gone for like 3 hours, but they went to pick up the van that was being repaired. They were literally at the car shop dealing with the van. Because they didn't call to check in, his response was explosive. But listen at what he said. He didn't say, "You disrespected me." He said, "I was about to come look for you. I was about to get on my bikes and come look for you. If something would have happened to you, that would have fell on me. I care about you." He framed his control as love. He framed surveillance as protection. He framed the fact that they couldn't move without his knowledge as him deeply caring for their safety. I want to call him a name, and I'm sure you all do too. For men who grew up without fathers who showed up, for men who never had a male authority say, "I care about what happens to you." That landed somewhere very deep. That's not leadership, but to a man who's carrying a father wound, that feels exactly like what a father should sound like. Now, some of the men later said they didn't know what was really happening to the women sexually. They claimed to have been unaware of the abuse. I want to address this carefully because I believe it probably falls somewhere in between they knew everything and they knew nothing. Somewhere right in between. What we know about trauma and survival is that the mind will sometimes protect itself by not fully knowing, by looking away, by accepting an explanation that allows you to stay in the group without the full explanation of what really happened. Some of these men were deliberately kept in the dark. At one point, Nature Boy separated the men and the women, literally put them in two different houses, two different locations, and then he stayed in the house with all the women. He was definitely able to do things to them without the men knowing at that point. I still believe that some of them had access to more information than they were willing to consciously hold, because holding it would have required them to act. And acting, bucking up against the chief, was terrifying. That's not necessarily evil on the men's part. That's a nervous system that is choosing survival over truth. Does that make sense? It's actually one of the most common and least discussed forms of trauma response there is. Let me pause for a second. I told y'all this is heavy. This is not just about carbonation. This is about the men we love, the men we've been confused by, the men we've watched get pulled into things that we couldn't understand, the men who hurt us, who were also being hurt. If something in this video is giving you language for something you've been trying to understand, drop a comment below. You don't have to have it all figured out. Just say what landed. And if you know a man who needs this, share it. June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. This is the conversation our community needs to be having. All right, let's bring this home. Let's talk about another part that gets skipped over in the commentary regarding this story. When people left Carbon Nation, when it finally fell apart, when the arrest happened, when the trial came, the assumption was that leaving meant healing, that getting out was the end of the story. But here's what we know about unhealed trauma. It doesn't stay where you left it. It follows you home. There were some things that Aaron admitted to, I'm not going to get into because there are some serious allegations. It's been alleged that even some other men in the group, even after the fact, it seems like they were turning into Nature Boy. They left Carbon Nation, but Carbon Nation didn't leave them. The patterns of control, violence, dominance, things that became normalized inside the group, things that have been reframed as discipline, masculine authority, as the natural order. Those patterns have been written into their nervous systems. And without healing, without intervention, without someone naming what happened to them and what they became inside it, those patterns just found new targets. This right here is why men's mental health is not a soft topic. It's not a luxury conversation. It's a matter of who gets hurt Next, when we don't give men language for their wounds, when we don't create safe spaces for men to say, listen, here's what happened to me, here's how it changed me, and I don't know how to undo it. The wound does not disappear, it multiplies. It moves from carbonation into a son's childhood, into a sister's safety, into the next relationship, the next community. The person who gets close enough to be in the vicinity of the pain that was never addressed. Many former male members of Carbon Nation have been found running financial schemes after leaving, allegedly, soliciting donations, finding new ways to exploit trust. Not because they were inherently predatory, but because the only example they had inside of Carbon Nation when it came to survival, hello, chief. Let's just take control and use people before they use you. So what do we do with all of this? For the women watching, here's what I can give you. The men in your life who have been controlling, who have been emotionally unavailable, who have needed dominance to feel safe. Most of them are not monsters. Most of them are men with these enormous unhealed wounds, and nobody ever gave them the tools to heal them. That does not mean you stay. That does not mean you accept harm. That does not mean their wound is yours to fix, but understanding the wound underneath the behavior. When you are safe, when you are healed enough, when you are on the other side of it, that understanding is your freedom. It's at that point you stop asking, well, what's wrong with me? And you start seeing what was broken in them long before they ever met you. And if you are a man who is watching this, whether a woman you love sent it to you or you just saw it in your YouTube feed and the title spoke to you, let me whisper at you real quick. If anything in this episode felt familiar, the hunger for brotherhood, the need for structure that tells you where you belong, the way certain leaders or environments have more control over you than you would like to admit, that recognition is not weakness. That is the beginning of your way out. You are allowed to have been manipulated. You are allowed to have done things inside of a wounded system that you wouldn't have done as a free man. You are allowed to say, I was not okay. I got lost and I want to find my way back. That is the bravest thing a man can say. And this is the thing that our community needs men to start saying out loud. I have a free guide in the description called It's Not Your Faith, It's Your Nervous System. I created it for women, but nervous system science doesn't have a gender. Wounds that make us available to control. The father wound, the rejection wound, the abandonment wound, the wound of never being enough. Those don't check a box before taking root. You are starting to understand that what you have been calling a character flaw or weakness is actually your nervous system being shaped by things that were done to you. Start there. It's free and the link is in the description. As a woman who survived a toxic mother, controlling church leadership, and years of survival mode that I thought was just my personality, I didn't build this from a textbook. I built it from the inside, what healing looks like when nobody is watching. And I'm telling you, the healing is available for women and the men they love. And for the men who are watching right now, wondering if there is a way for them to get back to themselves, there is, and it starts with understanding what happened to you. Episode 5, we're going to talk about why nobody left. And it's the nervous system episode, the one that answers what everybody keeps asking. Why didn't they just leave? Or why did they leave and keep coming back? That episode is for everyone who is saying, man, I knew better and I still stayed. It's also for people who have spent years being ashamed because of it, including some of you that's watching right now. I'll see you there.
I kept blaming heaven for what still bled in me. But the bruises had a name, and they came from deep. So I let it surface, I let it speak. Hands open.